All right, how is everyone doing? I'm sure you weren't expecting not to see me today, but things happen. What I did was I wanted to make sure you still got the lesson for today because we don't need to fall any further behind. And I am going to walk you through this so that way there are no excuses that you didn't know what you had to do. Look at how I've covered all of my bases. I know you're impressed. So, step one, you all need to log on to Common Lit and go to the assignment labeled Hope. It's a poem called Hope is a Thing with Feathers. I have put on the guided reading mode so that way you slow down and you take things step by step. There are 5 questions that you need to answer when you're finished. I highly suggest, again, getting yourself into the testing mindset and taking notes on what you need to know in this poem in your notebook. It's not something that I'm going to collect and grade. However, it's the same with the test. You're never going to be able to read a poem and understand it completely without analyzing it, and you're not going to be able to analyze it without writing something down. So take out your notebook and use it in the double entry section if you'd like to put your SWOT down and to really understand what this poem is talking about. Again, there are 5 questions that you need to answer when you're finished. You do not need to answer the discussion questions. That's not necessary. Just the 5 multiple choice questions. Um, please make sure you're taking your time. This will absolutely count as a grade. So go ahead and pause this recording right now and flip over to Common Lit. All right, hopefully you actually listened to my directions and paused the recording and finished your Common Lit activity because now we are jumping into the actual lesson for today, which is learning about ethos, pathos, and logos and getting you ready for the essay that you will be writing. Yes, we are not cutting the essay out, you will still be writing it. So that is why making the most of the time that we have is critical because I'm sure you don't want to have to be doing a lot of work over Christmas break to make up for all this time that we're losing. So today we're going to be talking about different techniques that you can use when you are trying to persuade somebody. So some guided questions that I want you to make sure that you're considering are: how do we persuade others to see our point of view? Do you just beat them over the head with your point until they submit, or do you actually try and present logic and reasoning and maybe even appeal to their emotions? These are, again, techniques. So, what techniques do you think advertisers, things that you see all the time, use to persuade us to buy their products? And why do we remember certain speeches? Same thing that advertisers do are the same things that people who give speeches do. They are trying to appeal to us using persuasion. What techniques do speakers use to make their speeches memorable? We'll be hitting on that today as well as tomorrow. So make sure you're following along with this PowerPoint to make sure you understand this new material. By walking through this PowerPoint with me, I'm already helping you answer the worksheet that will follow. So please make sure you're staying with me. So this looks like an old dude, I'm sure you're thinking, but who is he? Because he is extremely important and he's someone that we've actually talked about before. So take a minute, read through those facts, and see if you can already figure out who he is. All right, hopefully you might have guessed this. This is Aristotle. And if you've learned anything about rhetoric in the past, you've absolutely heard his name because he is the one who wrote the book, literally, called Rhetoric, which is still taught in colleges around the world to teach students how to be persuasive. I can actually speak from experience. In college, I was actually given this book to read, so it was absolutely still being used. So he is the one that developed this rhetorical triangle, which delves on the appeals of ethos, pathos, and logos. So you might want to keep this up while you're going through your assignment today as well as tomorrow. Again, this is on Canvas for you to be able to access always, but these are our 3 pillars. So some things that you want to make sure that you are committing to memory are that logos. When we are talking about logos, when we see something like this, we are talking about facts, data, things that can be verified, like statistics. Or even if someone is sharing a personal experience, like an example, we can fact check it. So that is what logos is. And we see this a lot in essays that you write right now, or anything that I give you to read that's nonfiction, because we see the facts, and facts cannot be disputed. Ethos, on the other hand, is more about information that is credible, as well that it can be fact checked too. So we're talking about people here, somebody's reputation. So if you know that somebody's giving a speech who is a doctor, and we see the credited universities that they obtained their degree from, that person has ethos because he or she has experience. People of authority, and we also believe that people who are that have empathy towards other people. This is all ethos, which leads us into pathos, which is your basic human emotions. We become more attached to certain matters because we care about them. And that would be the pathos of an argument. So when we hear a story that connects to something that we have also experienced, they are hitting on our pathos. When we are touching on senses, things that we can see, things that we can smell, taste, touch, all those, that is pathos. Figurative language that is used, or even a hypothetical situation where we're meant to vision something. These are all pathos. So when you're analyzing speeches or advertisements, you want to start thinking about who the speaker is, what the message is, who the audience is, what they're trying to persuade you to do, and what's the desired result, right? Did you ever just watch a commercial and not even know what it was selling, right? You're like, what is that supposed to be telling me? Is that directed at me? Is this something that I'm supposed to want? Well, if it's not clear, we obviously wouldn't buy the product. Same with the speech. If someone gets up and gives us a speech and we have no idea what they're talking about, they're not credible anymore, and we won't listen to it. Therefore, we won't be persuaded. So a really good trick to remember all of these different things that you need to be looking for in certain things is to use SOAPstone, which you might have seen before. So S stands for speaker, O is the occasion, A is the audience, P is the purpose, S is the subject, and it all ends with tone. We want to know what that speaker's tone is, or his or her attitude. So let's do some practice. So when we have ethos, again, we're talking about credibility. We're talking about knowledge, experience, expertise. All right. So if somebody has a degree, we're going to believe that they are credible. If we're reading an article out of a notable magazine like the New Yorker, or even Sports Illustrated, if it's talking about sports, those are credible sources. Anything along these lines could be ethos. So let's practice. As your father, I love you and only want the best for you. Therefore, when I ask you not to go, please listen to me. Do you think this uses ethos? If you said yes, you are correct, because as a father, this person has experience and has been through things, so he is credible. Therefore, this would be a good example of the ethos that I'm sure you've heard before in life. What about this? We really should try that recipe. Someone told me that it was good. This is not a good example of ethos because we don't know who this someone is. This could be just some random Joe Schmo, and that person is not credible. But if we change this to, you should really try this recipe, Julia Childs said that it's one of the best things that she's ever made. Well, that's a notable person. Martha Stewart, notable person. Now I'm going to believe it. Logos. Again, the speaker appeals to the audience's sense of logic, examples, facts, statistics, expert testimonies. So you've seen logos in the video testimonies that we've already been watching in our Holocaust unit. These are appealing to our logic because it's an expert, it's somebody who's been there. All right. If you see stuff like this online where you see statistics, again, these are facts. So all men and women will die. You are a man, therefore you will die one day. Is this a good example of logos? If you answered yes, you are correct, because if you are a man or if you are a woman, you will die one day. This is logic. We all know we will die one day. Kind of morbid, I'm aware, but still logical. Everyone has children. Therefore, everyone needs to think about the schooling of his or her children. Is this a good example of logos? If you said no, you're correct because everyone does not have children. That's a generalization. Therefore, it does not prove. It is not logical. So finally, we have pathos. The speaker appeals to the emotions of the audience. This is where they try and hit you in the heart. This is the feels kind of category where they want to kind of pull at your heartstrings to try and get you on their side. So they're going to use descriptive language, figurative language, personal or real anecdotes, which are stories, and they're going to try and get that personal connection to you. So this is a very powerful advertisement that has been used in the past to make people more aware about child abuse. Your words have power, use them wisely. This is in the shape of a hand with very negative words that were used in this child. Obviously, he's crying. He's a very cute kid, right? We feel bad for him. Makes us think. All right. Music and commercials. We talked about symbolism on Tuesday, right? And we listened to the Sarah McLachlan commercial that plays when we see the sad dogs, right? That is pathos being used. So here's your first example. If you don't purchase this life insurance and something happens to you, how will your family survive? If you answered yes, you are correct. This is playing at our heartstrings because now we have to think about, oh my God, what would happen to my family if I was not around? This is absolutely an emotional appeal. We have been mistreated, abused, and oppressed. They have benefited from our suffering, and we must act now. Again, this is a good example of pathos because it's showing us, hey, this is what happened to you. We have to stand up for ourselves. We're getting riled up when we hear something like this. So it's playing on our emotions of maybe anger or oppression or mistreatment, something like that, but it's getting us to feel some kind of way. All right, let's go through a few more. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, about half of all new establishments survive 5 years or more, and about one-third survive 10 years or more. As one would expect, the probability of survival increases with the firm's age. Survival rates have changed little over time. In your notebook, go ahead and write down what you think this is using: ethos, pathos, or logos. Well, first line tells us about statistics, so these are facts, therefore we know it's logos. A small puppy in a cage comes into view. The camera pans around into the dark, narrow space that confines the cage and its captive. The camera zooms back to the puppy's large, sorrowful eyes, which wince in slow motion. Text fades onto the screen. Adopt an animal today. Go ahead and write in your notebook what this is using: ethos, pathos, or logos. Well, we said before that something like this would be pathos because it's playing on our emotions. Third, Brian's Power Washing Company has been serving clients in the greater Philadelphia area for over 25 years. This would be ethos because Brian has been serving for over 25 years, which makes him credible. So we have ethos here, a credible source. And finally, four, according to Statista, in 2015, McDonald's not only had 14,259 restaurants in the United States, but a further 22,266 in international locations. Ethos, pathos, or logos? If you said logos because we were given statistics and numbers and facts that we could verify, you are correct. This is logical. All right. Oh, sorry. Just kidding. You have one more. Imagine what it would be like as a 9-year-old boy who is afraid to go to school because of the way other kids treat you. Every hallway, every classroom, every corner. There is nowhere to hide from the comments, from the shoving, from the pain. Yes, a building full of people, but you feel as if no one is there to support you. Imagine that. if you said